everyone, and welcome back to the Beatdown Bandits podcast. I am Colin, and so today's episode was going to be the last episode of the year, kind of like the season-ending episode, and I was going to take a couple-week break through the holidays and come back in January with season 2. However, as I was coming up with this episode, I wanted to kind of do a rundown of like events in 2020 and more of like the broad range, not of anything like stuff I did, but just 2020 in general. And I'm really realizing, and I knew it was going to be this way, it's very depressing. So I'm going to do this episode this week of kind of 2020 in review and kind of the 16 things that I jotted down of like the biggest things of the year. And it's kind of just big news stories and things that have affected us. And I'm realizing like that's not a good way to end a season. Like it's very depressing. So apologies in advance. This is going to be a depressing episode, which sucks that 2020 was so depressing, but it is what it is, man. It started off bad as I was kind of going back through things. Like in January, like crap was already hitting the fan. So here we are. We're in December, and we're just going to hope that 2021 is better, right? So that is the hope and dream. I almost said it couldn't get worse, but let's be honest, it really can. So we're just going to go through this. I pulled up kind of some real quick things. Some of them were just pictures or whatever of the things, but I'm going to kind of go through in order. And before I start getting into these, I want to disclose that in no way I'm making fun of anything. I'm not getting any type of political discussion, although there's like 2 or 3 things that are slightly political in there. Not having any of that political debate or anything like that. So I'm keeping those very open and straight to the point as far as that goes. I'm not making light of anything. There's a couple of deaths in here, things like that. It was just the numbers for me of like I forgot this happened. And so it kind of got pushed towards the end of the list type of thing, or if it wasn't as quite of a big of an impact in my opinion, so if I put something at number 15 and you thought that was the biggest thing of the year, don't get offended. It was just my opinion, and I dumped them in like a top 16 real quick. I didn't even really take that much time to sort them. It was almost like things I remembered in order of effect of 2020. And so I just started jotting them down. I put 1 through 16. Biggest thing, I'll spoiler alert. The number one thing for 2020 was COVID, right? So that was my number one, and then I kind of went through in order of kind of things that happened or biggest impact for me, right? So again, don't be offended. Again, I'm not making light of anything that happened. Obviously, we had everybody was impacted pretty major with these things. So let me share this. So we're gonna jump right into my number 16, and this one is a little comical. Hopefully that is sharing. It looks like we're good. So number 16 is murder hornets. So this was, I'd seen pictures of these before, but then they came into the United States. Fortunately, it was no impact really in the United States. I don't think anybody like actually died from this or whatever, but pretty major stuff. And I know like when COVID hit, it was almost like a joke of like, oh yeah, just something else that we can deal with is giant murder hornets, like 2020 in a nutshell, right? So moving on, that's number 16. Number 15. Sorry, these things may not load. I had so many like tabs open. So Turkey earthquakes. I had to like go through and read some articles as some refreshers. So I was kind of Googling like things that happened in 2020. I remember Turkey getting like an earthquake or two like a couple months back. But then they had one fairly early or fairly recently, just a couple days ago. And what I didn't know is they had like 5 earthquakes in like a very short span. And like hundreds of people died. Yeah, 116 people died just on this one 7.0 earthquake. Drowned in a minor tsunami. I mean, it's so horrible. And what kind of sucks about it is like as soon as they like start to try to recover, like another earthquake hits. It's like that's 2020 again in a nutshell. Is like earthquake, and it's like, okay, let's rebuild. Earthquake. Oh my God, we can't. So again, like I think a lot of people kind of forgot about these happening, and it was almost like a good reminder that, oh yeah, there's more stuff than just COVID and stuff that happens in the United States. People kind of need to be aware of this stuff. Okay, yeah. Chadwick Boseman. So obviously just a very cool dude. And the fact that he did like active for several years with like stage 3 colon cancer is pretty amazing. I'm not sure why this was yeah, there we go. It's like, come on, pop up. Yeah, so I had it in 2016, stage 3 colon cancer. Battled it for the last 4 years while going through like chemo and stuff like that. I mean, it was just insane. And so basically worked till the day he died, pretty much. So very shocking that kind of happened. Obviously he was a very young guy, 43, so not a giant impact on the world, but was just one of those very shocking things. Just like, what, why would this guy die? And then the fact that he kind of just almost hid this from the world. It was basically just one of those personal things to him, and was fighting for that for the last 4 years. So yeah, man, Wakanda forever. Was pretty cool impact over the last 5-6 years with Black Panther. And if COVID wasn't enough, so Ebola, I heard like back in like February or something, like the Congo had like a minor outbreak or whatever. Totally forgot about it. Uh, and then because March hits and boom, the world shuts down. But apparently, again, a minor little outbreak of Ebola in the Congo, which really is horrible for them because they have really no medical care, and they have to kind of rely on World Health Organizations and stuff like that to assist with those things, because they just don't have the assistance there. So yeah, keep that in mind that Ebola is still a real thing, and yeah, that's still outbreaking in 2020. Pretty insane. Now I do remember this happening. So back in over the summer, June, July timeframe, I remember China having like a couple hundred people die in floods, and which was insane to think about, because at that time, China was the one that was majorly impacted, and starting to recover a little bit from COVID, and then several hundred people die from like monsoon floods and things like that. Well, I didn't know it also was actually worse in like India and Nepal. So those countries actually got hit a little worse, but all through Asia, several hundred people died. I don't think Japan was that impacted, if I remember right. But yeah, it was all June and July. So again, if you didn't know this, hundreds of people died in Asia from just flooding from monsoons. So, more great news. So yeah, Russia declared a national emergency, and almost a pretty much world, because it basically dumped into the Arctic Circle 20,000 tons of oil, and dumped into a couple rivers. It was an accidental oil spill, but yeah, went into and fed out to a couple rivers out into the Arctic Circle. So I don't know what the impact was on this. I haven't read this article, but I can't imagine that being a great thing. So, well done. It's just, again, 2020. What are you gonna do? Okay, so the Ukraine flight, yeah, this is the one that crashed in Iran. Ukraine International Airlines flight 752. Okay. January 8th, the Boeing operating route was shot down by the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. All 176 passengers and crew died. 1919, 1920. I'm kind of reading this along here. 5 days after launched a drone strike that killed Iranian general. So, I mean, that's kind of a good retaliation, I guess. I mean, it sucks, but, you know, kind of eye for an eye here. You can't just shoot down a plane and with, you know, with a passenger plane like that, you know, not cool. Surface-to-air missile launched by Iran. They denied it for at least 3 days before finally admitting that the military had indeed shot down the civilian airliner. Mass protests calling for the removal of Supreme Leader. Okay, so there you go. So this was one of those things that I forgot happened. I read like a headline in an article that I was reading of like crappy things that happened in 2020, and this was like the first or second thing on the list. I'm like, what was this? So I just pulled up Wikipedia real quick and just, you know, kept it here, but I never got around to reading it. I do remember them being, shot down, and like 100. It was 176 people died. Insane. What number am I on? This is number. So like I said, I'm cutting from like 6 down to 1. So this is number 9, or 16 down to 1. So this is number 9. Is the West Coast wildfires. I think the biggest thing with this is just the straight up pictures. Is you can just like how orange everything is with the fires. So anybody who's outside of the United States may not know like how bad of an impact this is, and this has really been going on for years. But another one was kind of sprung out this year from a gender reveal party, which was, again, 2020 in a nutshell. Ended up starting a wildfire, and then you can kind of see, you know, the impact of the map over here on the right of the United States. That's basically halfway across the United States for anybody who isn't super familiar with the country. Is the fires basically have spread all that way, and then you can kind of see on like some of these like maps or whatever, some of these were like smoke plumes. So even here, so I live right here in Ohio. This is California where the fire started, and this is basically the smoke path. We could even see the smoke on the other side of the country. Were certain days, it's not like every day I can go out and see smoke. It was just like certain times, like, you know, and it was like a month or two ago, we could go out and see smoke from California. It was pretty ridiculous. Not great, but again, this is major impact, but this is stuff that happens a lot out there. They're always in droughts, and there's a lot of forests out there. So any type of fire whatsoever is pretty much just banned out on the West Coast, and people do stupid stuff. You know, there's been fires started from cigarettes to baby gender reveal parties. So this is the impact that a lot of people don't necessarily see. Next, the Kobe Bryant death. Again, this is something that feels like it was like 2 or 3 years ago. When Kobe Bryant died, and which is still kind of slightly under investigation, I guess. But then he also, his teenage daughter died as well. So again, very kind of very crappy news with that. I know if you're not into majorly into sports, this may not have had a big impact to a lot of people. But he kind of was one of those athletes that transcended sports, you know, like a Michael Jordan or whatever, that is so involved in other things. So it's just kind of a real horrible impact on sports in general. I mean, he's kind of a Mount Rushmore of basketball athletes. And to have somebody like that pass away is pretty bad. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, again, regardless of anybody's political affiliation, she did a lot for civil rights and women's rights, things like that. She's been, she was the second Supreme Court justice, female, and she was appointed back, like early 90s. It's probably somewhere 93. So she's been on the Supreme Court since 1993. So anybody who's willing to basically dedicate that much of their life to that is, that takes a lot of guts regardless. So kudos to her for being able to be able to deal with that, even at a later age. I don't necessarily agree with people, staying into politics for a billion years. Usually the Supreme Court is supposed to stay pretty politically free. They're supposed to just interpret the rules as written, or interpret the laws as written. And so most of them, I don't think, have that big of an impact on any of that stuff regardless. But for somebody to be on the Supreme Court for that long is, like I said, pretty dedicated person there. The Dow Jones. So 2020, and I would really like the last couple of years, just seeing weird impacts in the market. And so really this year, in the pandemic, I mean, you can see right there, the coronavirus pandemic has produced some of the biggest market swings on record. With things as being so impacted, I want to say it was like March 16th. So these are just like going by days here. Is this one? Yeah, March 16th. The worst point drop on record and worst turn since the 1987 financial crisis. So, the worst drop in history, for the market is not a good thing. But I know early on and then afterwards, we're starting to see kind of an increase again with the market and stuff. But obviously these are just some of like the bigger swing days. But so much of it is March and April, these like big giant swings. So here, March 13th, Friday the 13th turned out to be a good luck for investors. The Dow turned in its biggest point gain ever, rising nearly 2,000 points or over 9% after Trump took hard steps to combat the coronavirus by declaring a national emergency and listing America's biggest companies such as blah, 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 blah. So we literally have on a Friday the biggest jump ever. And then on Monday, we have the biggest decrease ever. Like, that's pretty nuts. That's basically the impact of the coronavirus on even the market. Pretty crazy. All right, are we on number 4 now? Number five, the Australian wildfires. So again, this is stuff that was happening in January. I want to say like 500,000 animals were killed, with like 1.5 billion animals affected. Not great, right? And then I know, so back in like the summer, it kind of kicked up again because it was kind of like their wildfire season. So again, pretty crazy, and just the amount of animals. I don't think many people died. I don't believe in these. See if it's got like a death toll. I don't know, but the biggest impact, at least for Australia, was the amount of animals, like just the wild animals that live in Australia. Yeah, when you're talking billions of animals affected or dead, like that's pretty horrible. Especially anywhere, but in Australia, they have a lot of native animals that are only native to there, and a lot of animals that are kind of on that endangered list. So again, that's very horrible news. And one of those things that maybe a lot of people forgot happened because it started early in the year. The Beirut explosion. So again, this is one of those things where, how many people died? 204. Okay. I was like, I wasn't for the pictures of the Beirut Lebanon explosion, you would think a lot more than 204. And I don't want to put any type of, positive spin on 204 deaths. But for how devastating it looked, you would think thousands and thousands have died. I know like 300,000 people are homeless from this. And this is something of kind of a third world type country where they will never recover from this. They will be affected by this for years and years and years. And it's pretty bad. It was one of those things also, like when I was looking at lists of things that happened in 2020, that I almost forgot that this happened. It was one of those major stories, but I just want to see this picture here. It's loading super slow. One of those major stories of 2020. I don't care about. Okay, forget it. We're not gonna bother with it. But because like so many other things happened, even like after it, you almost forgot. But pretty devastating impact in the Middle East. Number 3, U.S. presidential elections. So I don't want to dig into this too much, but it's just one of those things that you just kind of make you sick to your stomach if you're an American. I know most people outside of the United States just almost kind of laugh at us, which is very disappointing. And as a country that we've always been kind of one of these leading countries in a lot of things, to be an embarrassment with our leaders is, well, it's embarrassing. And I just don't feel like we're so divided on this that it makes things 1,000 times worse than what it is. I mean, our country is divided on every major category and every topic that you can think of. It's like 50-50, and it's embarrassing. We can't agree on anything. And yeah, it's like we're little kids. And I know, like, the first presidential debate this year, I was so upset and just sick to my stomach because we have two men who are elderly men who are acting like they're 3-year-olds, and it's just, I don't want to be involved in it. Like, it was that embarrassing. So yeah, and to me, the country is a loser with this election. The United States lost because we have, we don't have great people right now that are in those. Unfortunately, we're stuck on 2 political parties, and nobody can see beyond that, which is another kind of disappointment. Is that it's my way or the highway type of thing, and nobody is willing to compromise. So that's kind of the bad part of our politics right now, is just the division, and it's really ugly, like online and everything. It's horrible. So yeah, I am predicting that every election kind of going forward is just going to be worse and worse and worse, and more ugly, and just I'm going to be more and more embarrassed for our country and for myself that I kind of live here. So it's kind of bad, but especially I love this country, and it just sucks that this is what our politics are like. So jumping right into something very similar and something that's also on the political spectrum is the racial protests that have happened in the United States, and actually all over the world, to be honest. It's not just in the United States that there was the racial protesting. I am all for protesting. It's one of the cool parts about our country is that we have the rights to protest. But the second that people get into rioting and looting, violence, things like that, it becomes not a protest. It becomes rioting and looting, and now you're breaking the law. But a lot of people can't see past that, and because it's gone back and forth of like people like, it's like, well, I was just protesting. I'm just holding a sign. But because 8 million other people are out there rioting and looting and things like that, you kind of get thrown into that thing. And it's the same on both sides. There's a lot of good police officers and there's a lot of bad police officers. And so everybody gets assumed that, oh, you're a bad cop. You're a cop, so therefore you're a bad person. You're racist and blah, 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 blah. And, oh, you're out there protesting. That means you're out there trying to riot and loot and steal stuff. And again, this is one of those political divides in the country. I can see it from everybody from Twitter to Facebook, whatever, is nobody is like, yeah, people can be racist and people should be able to protest this stuff. And there's, like it or hate it, there's a lot of sports people out there who have been able to use a voice for good and make some political statements, but do it without any type of violence. And even that gets shunned by a lot of people, which is kind of ridiculous. But here's this is the world we live in. Is again, it's such a political divide that it's very unfortunate that we forget we do have these rights to do these things. So. But again, it started with George Floyd, and it continues to this day. We had somebody in Columbus. I live near Columbus, Ohio, and we had somebody killed here who was holding a Subway sandwich. Was killed here just a week or two ago, and he was black, and I don't believe anything else was happening. He stopped. He put his hands up with a Subway sandwich and was shot and killed. So that's one of those other things. It's like, sometimes you're affected by the color of your skin. And I am smart enough to realize, like, if that was me, and if you can't tell just by looking at the camera, I am white, I probably would not have been shot. But I don't know the full story on that. I don't know if anything else was said. I do know he has a concealed carry permit, but he was not carrying any type of gun with him. That's kind of the big thing that was talked about, is literally the only thing that he had on him was a sandwich. I don't know. Like I said, I try my best to kind of stay out of this because it's very depressing. But there's a lot of injustice happening right now, and there's a lot of people trying to fight for both sides of things. And I don't know. I don't feel good about any of it, for sure. And I don't feel good about this one either. So number one, obviously the biggest impact on 2020 is COVID. It had an impact on a couple of the other things on my list. But here we are. From what we were told is, a couple weeks and we should be good to go. And, we're almost a year into it. What'll be like 9 months into this. And it's honestly just getting worse and worse and worse. Hopefully everybody realizes that, this is not a fake disease of any sort or any type of fake virus. It is a very real thing. You can look into the numbers, and my own personal belief, again, this is just my opinion, is that the numbers show a lot more positivity than what is being construed out into the news. So please, if you are having any type of panic about it, get onto like your area's Department of Health website, which a lot of times, at least from my state, I can look up an actual CSV file with just data in it, with it broken down by county, by area, and that gives me a lot more information than what the news gives me, and it's at least accurate information, or at least as accurate as can be. And that gives me a lot of more positivity than what I hear from my governor and what I hear from the news. Is a lot more things going in the right direction. But the overall numbers aren't amazing. So obviously there's been a lot of deaths and a lot of people affected. But percentage wise is something you need to kind of always look at. Just the overall impact on things. There are people to this day, like I said, it's December, and there are people who have been inside and haven't really gone out since March. And that's all across the world. It's got a big impact on depression, people's jobs. It's got a big impact on suicides, even like teen suicides and preteen suicides. Those are the stories that really kind of hit home with me. Those are devastating impacts on so many different things. But again, look into the numbers for yourself. Don't believe anybody. Okay, if anybody wants to start sharing it, just ignore it. Look into the numbers yourself. So anybody who wants to comment about, oh, it's not this big of a deal or it's a major impact, I'm not even going to pay attention to it, because I can look into the information myself. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. When it comes to that stuff, I can look into it a little bit better for what matters to me, and I can look into everything. Like I said, I don't listen to the news when it comes to that stuff, because they're going to give you pretty much the most negative possible things they can come up with. Yeah, so everybody's, like I said, everybody's got their own opinions on even COVID, but look into the numbers yourself. If anybody who wants to start talking about it, I just zone out, and it's like, yeah, you can have whatever opinion you want. It's not going to affect my opinion. It's the same stuff with politics. Is somebody can be on the total opposite end of a spectrum of politics. They can debate all day. It's never going to change my beliefs. No discussion or no meme or no person yelling at me on the internet is ever going to change my political beliefs. So I would love to see political debates just end on the internet, because it has no impact. It just creates more of a divide and people getting angry and upset with each other. So yeah, again, look into the COVID stuff. Like I said, it's still an impact today. I can't go to work without a mask on. My daughter has to stay home from school. My son has to go to school with a mask on. There's a lot of sports impact of people, having sports canceled, and my son's supposed to have another basketball game in a couple of days, and that got canceled. So there's all sorts of major impact out there. So, man, I don't feel great. I can tell you that much, but I am done with the complaining about 2020. So, like I said, this is not going to be the end. I'm going to come back next week or the week after. I don't know if I can get another podcast done before next Saturday comes out. So this podcast is going to come out on the 12th. So today is Saturday the 12th. This is when this is at least releasing. I don't know what day you're listening. Yeah. So I'm trying to think. So the 20th, yeah. So probably that will be the last episode of the year. I was trying to think of when I could squeeze another one in, but yeah, I can get another one done by next week, and hopefully have a guest on, or at least one of my co-hosts who I've been kind of doing this on a different schedule, so we haven't really been able to get together. So I've been doing a lot of solo podcasts lately. I really hope the sound is picking up, because I just realized my microphone is way back here. Oh God, if I have to re-record this, I'm going to be very upset. Anyway, so yeah, I'll have an ending episode for the season, for the year, really next week, most likely, and then it'll end on a much better note. We'll have a positive. Maybe we'll do another 2020 in review. Of like the positive things that happened in 2020. So, we had 16 negatives for today. Why don't we have a handful of positives? But I would much rather end on a better note. So again, thank you very much for watching or listening. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. It's probably the best way to watch or listen. If you're on the road or traveling or doing whatever, you can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So thank you for checking us out over there. On YouTube, those links are in the description, or you can just go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and search for Beat Down Bandits Podcast, and you find us right there. Or vice versa. If you want to find us on YouTube, if you're listening and find us on YouTube, just again search for Beat Down Bandits Podcast. That's on my YouTube channel that I do all my gaming stuff on. That's Go Buckeye Gaming. So you're more than welcome to find us over there. It's the easiest way to comment. You can always leave reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and I will try to check those out. I don't check them out super often because I don't get reviewed very much over there, but I do see comments on YouTube at least. Again, that's it. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Sorry this is such a negative podcast, but yeah, I cannot end the year on this. So, but yeah, negative 2020 review here. All right, guys. Thanks again. Later.